As Carly mentioned the other day, I gave a presentation about food and mood. So I talked about how what we eat can affect how we feel, and how we feel can affect what we eat. So today I'm going to prepare two dishes that focus on brain health. Because when we take care of our brain and we eat foods that support cognition and memory, we can feel good. So there are various ways that food can support brain health. It can do this by lowering our cholesterol and promoting cardiovascular health. Some foods can actually lower the protein that, when it builds up, is associated with Alzheimer's disease. Other foods can raise our HDL, or good cholesterol, which is also good for brain health. And foods can support our overall health, which can support in turn how we feel in general. If we take care of, our bodies, we can take care of our brains, because we're all connected. When we eat a food that's good for our brain, it doesn't only go to our brain, it supports the rest of our body as well. So a diet abundant in fruits and vegetables, beans or legumes and whole grains provide us with ample vitamins and fiber that supports good health overall. And when we're also mindful of our added sugar intake, that can help keep our blood sugars at good levels, which also supports brain health. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the ingredients as I go, so hopefully it will be an educational experience as well. One of the reasons I picked these two dishes, besides having lots of nutrients known to support brain health, is that it gives me several opportunities to talk about other topics that I'm interested in with nutrition as well, especially topics that we often see mentioned in the news and the media. So I'll start now with our no-bake walnut fudge, so that it has time to chill in the freezer and so that I can get the oven going for the tortillas. So I'm going to set the oven to 375. All right, there we go. So generally when you bake, you mix the dry ingredients and then you add the wet ingredients. This is a no-bake brownie, so I don't really think it matters, but I'm going to start with the dry ingredients first. So the first thing we have, is a 1/4 cup of raw cacao powder. So cacao is where we get chocolate from. You may be familiar with it, but for those of you who don't, it comes from the cacao bean. Bean is kind of a funny word. It's like a giant fruit that looks like a football, and when you open it up, it has these nuts in it that you can roast and it becomes chocolate. So you may be more familiar with cocoa powder than cacao powder. So cocoa powder also comes from the cacao bean, but what happens is that it's roasted at a higher temperature, which removes the bitterness and ends up with that smooth chocolatey taste that we like in our hot chocolate. Cacao is roasted at a lower temperature, so there's more bitterness, but by roasting it at the lower temperature, it preserves more nutrients, it has a lot of antioxidants, and it's better for baking. Another cool thing is that cacao has magnesium. One serving of this cacao powder has 25% of your daily value of magnesium. And if you went to my talk the other day, I discussed how a magnesium deficiency is associated with anxiety or anxious feelings. So that's really cool. This has magnesium in it. So I'm going to take a 1/4 cup. And if I talk too fast, please tell me to slow down, because I do talk fast. That is a heaping 1/4 cup. There we go. All right. So let's see what's next. Next ingredient is 1 teaspoon, of organic vanilla bean powder. So price alone, I would recommend just using regular vanilla extract. The flavor of vanilla bean powder is a little more concentrated, and people like to use it in baking. Again, we're not really baking, so I don't think it's very necessary. But since the flavor, again, is more concentrated, if you want to swap it out, you use a half teaspoon of powder for every 1 teaspoon of extract, or 1 teaspoon of extract for every half teaspoon of powder. Powder is basically just the same thing, vanilla without the alcohol. Vanilla extract is basically alcohol with vanilla in it. Another thing that's really cool, and I saw on here, and I saw it on the chocolate as well, a lot of these so-called superfoods come from countries south of the equator, and they tend to be very expensive and come from various types of farms. So for me, I care about social justice and fair trade. It's really cool to see the fair trade logo on it. It means it came from a farm that respects its workers and takes precautions to protect them. So this is 1 teaspoon. And it smells amazing. It smells like super vanilla. So we'll do a teaspoon of that. Next, it calls for a 1/4 cup of walnuts. So walnuts are wonderful. They have a ton of antioxidants from vitamin E. Antioxidants can work to protect our tissues, but especially our brain tissues. They can prevent the oxidative damage from our bad cholesterol. So this is the plant form of omega-3 fatty acid, and it's an essential fat. So that means our body can't make it. The fat, or in this case, the omega-3, has to come from our diet. So it's good to eat walnuts. The omega-3 fatty acids can also help fight depression and promote brain health and help prevent heart disease. So it's good to have it regularly in your diet. A cool fact about walnuts also is that they have the highest amount of omega-3 fatty acids of all the nuts and the most antioxidants of all the nuts that we eat. So I'm going to get a 1/4 cup of that. I'll use a spoon. I still have some cacao powder on here. There we go. And then next it calls for a 1/4 cup of almond butter. Almond butter is basically the same as peanut butter, but it comes from almonds. It might have a little more fiber in it. Another thing I wanted to mention about nut butters is that people tend to think of nut butters as a protein food because they tend to be high in protein, but really nut butters are a fat food, and we need fats in our diet, but some are categorized as proteins. I would categorize this as a fat because 1 serving has 16 grams of fat, but only 6 grams of protein. So if you want to incorporate more protein into your diet, there are some other choices that have more protein than a nut butter. So we're doing a 1/4 cup of nut butter, almond butter. Another thing I like to look for, so I used to be a wildlife biologist in my previous life for several years. And so I care about the environment. And a lot of the nut butters that we see in the stores contain palm oil. And palm oil often comes from areas where forests are converted into palm oil plantations, and it's not great for wildlife, and it also takes away oxygen-giving trees. So I like to get nut butters that say that the palm oil is from a sustainable source, or that there's no palm oil in it, although that's harder to find. So that's a 1/4 cup. Yes, just double checking. Okay, I'm gonna put this in the sink real quick. All right, and then next is a 1/4 cup of maple syrup. So this is grade A maple syrup. They come in grades A and B that I know of. So grade A tends to be lighter, and the flavor as well is a little bit lighter. Grade B is darker and thicker, and it has a more robust flavor. It also has a few more minerals in it, and vitamins. This is being used in this case as a substitute for sugar, but I did want to point out that not only does a tablespoon of this have the same amount of sugar as a tablespoon of regular white sugar or table sugar, but it has the same chemical composition. So basically when you eat this, your body can't tell the difference between this and regular sugar. So it's just, I think it's something cool to know. A lot of people like to substitute maple syrup for regular sugar because it has, you know, those trace vitamins and minerals. It has zinc, for example, but it's such a small amount. It's like less than 1% of your daily value. So it's really up to personal preference in this case. So there's a quarter cup of that, and I missed one ingredient. I missed a cup of coconut oil. So I have 2 jars of coconut oil, actually. Coconut oil is solid at room temperature, though sometimes in Florida it's not because our houses are warm. And this is because coconut oils are high in saturated fats. So animal fat is saturated. Its molecular structure keeps it solid at room temperature. So if you have like a piece of steak or whatever, it will have, you know, the solid fat on it that you cut off. Plant fats, on the other hand, are unsaturated, and that's why olive oil and avocado oil are liquid at room temperature. So coconut oil has about 90% saturated fat, which is higher than butter. But the interesting thing is that the saturated fat in coconut oil, or coconut oil in general, has been shown to boost our HDL, our good cholesterol. But there isn't long-term research on how it affects our cardiovascular health over time. So until then, I would treat coconut oil maybe as any other oil, or you can substitute as you desire. So we'll do a cup of that, which I may not make it. And right here I have a jar of refined coconut oil and unrefined coconut oil. And the biggest difference is that the unrefined coconut oil has a stronger coconut flavor and a lower smoke point. So if you're cooking with it, one second, if you're cooking with it, it will smoke at a lower temperature than the refined coconut oil. So the the refined coconut oil, let's see if I can get this, has a higher smoke point, so you can cook it at higher temperatures before it smokes, and it has less of a coconut flavor. And I'm unable to open this, but I'm very, very close to 1 cup. So I'm just gonna go with it because I don't wanna accidentally throw the jar. I'm trying to open it. So 1 second. So then now I have all the ingredients mixed together, or in a bowl together. I'm gonna mix it until it's smooth. It's so quiet. I'm not used to only hearing myself talk. So here. It's pretty easy to mix this. Awkward silence. All right, so it seems like the only lumps left, that's the oven. It seems like the only lumps left are from the walnut. So I'm going to carefully pour this into a 5x9 loaf pan. It's close. So that's it all mixed up. And into the pan it goes. Hopefully only the pan and not anywhere else. Does anyone have any questions about this or any of the ingredients I used or anything like that?
There's no questions in the chat box.
Okay.
So
I'm going to set this aside. All right. Awesome. No drips, no spills. So I'm going to put this into the freezer for 30 minutes. So real quick. let's do 30 minutes on here. And like I said, the coconut oil is liquid at room temperature. So when it goes into the freezer, the ingredients will solidify. Because
I don't know. Ellie didn't say nothing about the brother. He was just talking about, Robin and Tracy and yeah. And he said he's got another sister there, but she's got two younger kids, and he was saying it's not fair just to put it all on her. So
I'm gonna move on. Oh, there we go. Okay, so so I'm gonna put this over in the sink as well. And we're gonna move on to our salmon and black bean tostadas. Okay, these can go here. And I just wanna clean this off real quick. It didn't get very messy, but it's good to do that. Okay, so I've got the oven going, and I've got two different types of tortillas. We're gonna see what works better. So I have the tostadas, so they're the crunchy sort of type, and I'll take one out real quick so you can look. I'm not gonna use it yet though. So I have the crunchy tostada. It's like a big round corn chip. Put it here on the other cutting board. And then I'm using the oven to try to make some on my own. This will hopefully work. So the way to do this is I have the oven at 375 and take the never-ending twist tie off. And what you do is, I'm gonna use a flat one, sort of flat. Let's see, 448. You spray it on both sides. I have coconut oil, like Pam coconut oil spray. Maybe I'll do 2, just in case. The recipe calls for 8, but that's a lot to manage right now. So I'm gonna do 2. Put them in the oven for 6 minutes, and then you flip and you let them stay there for another 6 minutes. So I'm gonna put them in here. I don't know if you can see the oven, but it's very hot. I'm putting it right on the rack. And give me a moment to wash my hands, please. Okay, sorry, I got that spray oil on my hands. All right, so we're gonna start with a can of salmon. It is a, let's see, how many ounces? I think it's supposed to be 6 to 7 ounce can of salmon. So salmon is really high in omega-3 unsaturated fats. This is associated with lower levels of Alzheimer's. It's really interesting because the omega-3 fatty acid can sort of prevent the buildup of proteins that are often associated with Alzheimer's disease. So it's suggested that we eat fish about twice a week, but it's good to select a fish that is low in mercury. So that's going to be light tuna, salmon, or cod. But if you're pregnant, you want to talk to your doctor about fish consumption. So this goes in a bowl here. This is packed in water, not oil. That way, we don't have the added texture or the added fat from the oil. So all of it goes in there. Set this aside and wash my hands. Okay, then next up is 1 avocado. So avocado is really awesome. It's also high in monounsaturated fats. Again, monounsaturated fats have a protective effect for brain cells. They protect brain cells. It's also high in folate, and folate deficiency is sometimes associated with mental health symptoms such as depression. It's also high in potassium. When combined with omega-3 fatty acids, this can lower blood pressure. So I cut the avocado in half, and I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but I'm making slices the long way, and then I'm going to make slices the short way. This is how I like to dice an avocado. I know there are other ways to do it, but I do it this way. So we're going to use 1 whole avocado. Another thing that with salmon that's important to me, because I care about the environment and I like learning about it, is that there are many different types of salmon available. You might see signs or symbols on your packaging that say wild caught and farmed, and people don't know, you know, which kind of salmon should I, whoops. 1 second. People don't know what kind of salmon they should get. And so health-wise, it's pretty much the same. However, farmed salmon is higher in omega-6 fatty acids. And the reason why, you know, salmon is recommended is that we want the omega-3. Farmed salmon are often fed grains, which changes its fatty acid profile. Environmentally, wild salmon from the Pacific is probably the most environmentally friendly choice. Okay, so that was the avocado seed that decided to run away from me. So I've got that, and then it's, let's see, 2 tablespoons of pickled jalapenos. I have a jar down here in my little cooler. And we'll do 2 tablespoons, more or less. I have nothing to say about pickled jalapenos except that they taste good. And of course, if you don't enjoy jalapenos, you don't have to add them to this. There we go. So we're going to chop it up a little bit. I don't have the greatest knife technique, but it get the job done. And I'll add it to the bowl. And give it a mix. Any questions so far?
Nothing. They're so quiet. No questions.
Okay. Maybe I'm just very captivating. so no one has any questions. So here's a bowl with, it's got the avocado, salmon, and pickled jalapenos in it. I'm going to set it not too close to the edge. All right. So next, I have the topping for this. So I'm going to use 2 cups of a coleslaw mix, which has, which of course has cabbage in it, which is high in fiber and vitamin C. And it's also a good prebiotic. It feeds the healthy or the good bacteria in our gut. And taking care of that good bacteria in our gut can actually take care of our brain health, since there's a lot of connections between our brain and our gut. So when we have a happy gut, it can support our brain. So we're going to do 2 cups of, I'm using a pre-made mix. One of the things I hear from a lot of people, besides not knowing what to eat, is not having time to make healthy meals. And I'm talking a lot, so this is going slowly, but I wanted to show an example of something that you can throw together pretty easily, and it's very nutritious. So I'm not a chef, but hopefully I can make a difference somehow by doing this kind of stuff. So we've got the 2 cups of coleslaw, and I thought it had a clippy, but I guess not. And I'm also going to add 2 tablespoons of the jalapeno pickling juice. which again, if you don't like spice, you don't have to do this. Doesn't really change anything. Just tastes good. So we'll do that. Also, protecting or eating foods that help your gut health helps with your immune system, which is also very good. So now for the big part. Let me write this down real quick. So now we're going to mix black beans, reduced fat sour cream, prepared salsa, scallions, and we're going to put them in a food processor. I almost forgot what it was called. And the tortillas are crispy. So I wanted to cook them really fast. Actually, let's do this one. Sorry, I forgot to get that on the video. Actually, I don't think I'm going to flip them because, look, they're crispy. I don't know if you can hear that. So I'm going to take them out. All right. Whew. So let's take a look at this. So here is my food processor, and I'm going to try to put it out of the way. So I'm going to use a 15-ounce can of low sodium beans. So beans are great for brain health as well because they're very high in fiber. Fiber, again, helps lower your bad cholesterol. When we have cholesterol at the levels that, at healthy levels, it can prevent atherosclerosis and buildup of, fat and cholesterol in our arteries. And when we have open arteries, we have a good supply of blood to our brain. So that is one way fiber helps. It's also high in protein and folate. And again, I talked about folate helping with brain health and depression. So we're going to drain them. I'm not going to rinse them because when we rinse the beans, we wash away a lot of the nutrients that come out in the liquid. And since this is low sodium, I'm not super worried about getting all the salt off of them. So I'm just going to drain them right there. Okay. This is the real challenge for me. So we're going to put them into the food processor, which is properly assembled because I double checked. All right, I'm going to put this in the sink. Then we're going to add 3 tablespoons of reduced fat sour cream. I'm here. I'm going to rinse this tablespoon off real fast because it was in the jalapenos. Okay. So what did I say? 3 tablespoons. And this is just to give it some creaminess. I like sour cream. I know some people don't. I think the beans on their own are pretty creamy once you blend them though. There we go. I think that's good. I'll use a spoon I'm out of spoons. I'll use a fork. There we go. All right. I'm also going to add 2 tablespoons of prepared salsa to this. Oh, it's right here. So when you get a prepared salsa, I like to look for ones that are fresh. They often call them pico de gallo. They tend to be lower in sugar than the typical kinds in the jars that you would use for chips. So I'm going to need how much of this? 2 tablespoons. So let's.
I ain't never, you might get off at 10 o'clock. The place be closed.
So you need 2 tablespoons of this. Okay. And scallions, also known as green onions. And I'm just going to use the green parts. It's magnetic. There we go. And if I was using this as a garnish, I'd be really careful to cut them diagonally so that they're pretty, but I'm not. They're just going into the food processor, so I'll just use most of the green part. Oops. And not use the white part and just put them in there. So, oops. All right. So it says process until smooth. So I'm gonna make some noise for a second, if it works. There we go. I think that is smooth. Another thing that's great about the fiber in beans is that it can help reduce or lower blood glucose. So when we have chronically high blood sugar, it can cause inflammation in our body, including in the brain, and that can lead to memory loss and cognitive decline. I want to use this green bowl, so I'm transferring it. So that's another way beans can help us. Beans are pretty awesome. Okay. I'll get this out of the way. And be careful with this. I think that looks good. Put this in the sink. I'm gonna have a nice pile for after this. So I'm putting this in a microwave safe bowl. That's why I transferred it. I didn't mean to use the green one in the beginning, but at least it's all part of the same recipe. So it doesn't matter too much that one thing was in it and then another thing was in it. So trying to get all that out. All right. So I don't know if you can see, but this is what it looks like when the beans are all ground up. This is done instead of using like a can of refried beans. That's very high in fat and it tends to use saturated fat. So this way, you know, our beans are nice and creamy, kind of like refried beans, but minus the fat. We have a little bit of sour cream and that's it. So we've got 10 minutes left on the fudge. We're gonna get this going. Hopefully it won't affect the microwave timer. And I'll put this in for a minute just to heat it up. So one thing that was really cool that we learned about using the microwave during our classes, our nutrition classes, was that the microwave is actually the best way to preserve the nutrients in vegetables. So vegetables lose their nutrients with heat and with water. So for example, if you cook something at a really high temperature, it can destroy nutrients. Or if you cook something in water for a long time, it can make the vegetables lose nutrients. So the microwave is high heat, but it's also a fairly short amount of time, and it doesn't use much water. Maybe a little bit of steaming happens. So we found that microwaving vegetables preserves a lot of vitamins and minerals, which I thought was really cool, and maybe you think that's cool too. But it has a couple more seconds. So I'm gonna get the plate ready. All right. It's hot. And so I'll do one of each. So you take your tostada or your crispy tortilla. I don't think I can reach it. Here we go. And what you do is you spread the bean mixture on it. Move this out of the way, actually, so you can see. Sorry about that. So we'll spread the bean mixture almost to the edges, because in case you want to pick it up with your hands, then there's an edge to grab, right? So we'll do that on the little tortilla I did too. And I know I mentioned that the big one was corn. The little ones are corn tortillas as well. So for those of you who are sensitive to gluten, if you see a corn tortilla that says no gluten, it's a good option. So next I'll put the salmon, avocado, and jalapeno on here. I don't know if you can see. Maybe I can lift it up. There, it's right almost to the edge. So this is meant to make 8 of these. I would need a lot more dishes to make 8. So what I can do instead is make 2 with a lot of food on them.
Leslie, how many calories would you estimate per taco? If it's 8.
Putting me on the spot. Maybe a couple hundred. I think it's fairly low calorie because we don't end up putting a lot of avocado. The calories are going to come from avocado mostly, and maybe even the tortilla. But salmon and the beans are fairly low in calories. But I can send out the recipe. And that should have it on there. But I should probably get better at my calorie estimation.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, so fat has more calories per gram than protein or carbohydrates. So in this case, the fat is the avocado, and the pre-made tortilla might have a bit of fat in it. So there's 9 calories per gram of fat, whereas carbohydrates like the beans and the jalapenos and probably the corn tortilla that isn't already toasted, that's going to have about 4 calories per gram. Yes. All right, so finally, we're going to put this cabbage on top as like a garnish and something that's cool and crunchy, which is nice because it contrasts with, the hot beans. And I'm just going to go like this. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll show you. I really like the purple in there. It gives it a nice color, and there's some carrots in there too. This is why I chose a pre-made mix instead of doing it myself, because it has the carrots and the purple cabbage. So let me move this, make it pretty. I think this is a pretty easy weeknight dinner. It actually goes a lot faster in reality when you're not talking, but it's crunchy. You can eat it with your hands. It's packed with nutrients that are good for your brain. And when we take care of your brain, you can help take care of your mood. And yeah, so we're gonna check on the fudge. It still says 5 minutes, but we'll see if it's solidified. All right, so it seems pretty solid. Let me move this down in front. Now comes the tough part. So Mara, the other intern, there's 3 of us, suggested that I'm throwing her under the bus here. She suggested that I run the knife under warm water because it's kind of hard to cut it while it's in here. Maybe, yeah. So I'm gonna run under warm water and see if that helps. And it takes a while for the water to get warm, so I apologize. All right, let's give this a shot. Oh my gosh, Mara is a genius. Thank you, Mara. You've saved my day. So I'm just gonna cut it into some bigger squares that maybe I can get out more easily. Sorry, this looks kind of dangerous, and it sort of feels dangerous too. All right. Let's see if I can get it out with a fork. That is not cooperating. One more. Let's see how to do this. It may just be crumbly. There we go. Oops. Well, here's what I'll do. I'm having trouble getting it out. Maybe it needed to sit a little bit longer, but I'll do this. There we go. This is a fun frozen treat, I think. So once you make it, it has to stay in the fridge or freezer because at room temperature, it'll get melty. I think it's a good chocolate treat. It has sort of a different consistency, but it's like fudge. There we go. So I have broken pieces. It's kind of like a mixture between chocolate bark and fudge with walnuts in it. So I think this might have had to sit in the freezer a little bit longer. But that's what I've got for you. 2 foods packed with antioxidants, omega-3 fatty acids, and flavors that most of us enjoy. I enjoy them. I think people enjoy them. So if you have any questions for me, I would be happy to do my best to answer them. Here's this again. You can see the walnuts in it. I think that's pretty cool. Also, thank you so much for joining me. This was very entertaining, and I had a good time.